Welcome to Chiro Author Insights. I am with Dr. Navaz Habib, which is an incredible opportunity for you to speak to an amazing chiropractor and author in the area of the vagus nerve. He's the author of the #1 bestseller, Activate Your Vagus Nerve, Unleash Your Body's Natural Ability to Heal, which is such a profound topic in terms of chiropractic, neuroscience, and health and well-being. There's a couple of things I'd also like to highlight before we get into your book, so that people really understand some of the background. You've done so much as well to be able to come to this accomplished position. You've been on a number of podcasts, the Healing Pain podcast, for example. You're an article writer. You have an amazing practice and have worked really deeply with, I think, an incredible group of people, the entrepreneurs, the executives, professional athletes, helping people to go to the next level of their health and well-being. And you do this from a real strong position of understanding cause rather than symptom. And I think if I talk about something that really emphasizes the character and nature of you, which inspires me, is you have a strong legacy-minded focus on helping people achieve what they are capable of achieving and expanding their potential. And so you integrate functional medicine, functional nutrition with the chiropractic principles, and it makes you, in my mind, an exceptional, not just chiropractor, but person serving the world. You're an absolute game changer in being able to identify causes. Dr. Habib, welcome to Author Master Insights.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here, and that was quite the introduction. I did not expect that.
Well, I'm excited to speak with you. I know I've seen you on summits. I've read the book because I'm a bit of a neuroscience buff myself. I hosted the Neuroscience Summit, and I love this area, and the knowledge that you're bringing forth is so beautiful. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you and connect for the first time. So what I'd like to do is just give people a little bit of background to you, to where you've come from to where you are at this moment in time. So let's just start with that.
Certainly. So I live in Toronto in Canada, and have been here my entire life, and always had a very positive interaction with the chiropractic profession. When I was a teenager, I had significant back pain. One of my mom's close friends was a chiropractor, and he really took me under his wing to teach me about what chiropractic was, the idea behind how we can treat and assess and really fix the person from the root cause. And with an amazing, very short treatment plan, we ended up getting rid of all of my back pain, and it was absolutely wonderful. And I was able to grow from that. And because of that, I always had a very soft spot in my heart in getting into the chiropractic profession. I was always aware that I wanted to get into some sort of healthcare based practice, and chiro was always really at the top of that list. Once I was accepted to CMCC here in Toronto, Canadian Memorial Chiropractic College, I knew that everything was perfect, that I was set and I was in the right place. And so ended up graduating from CMCC in 2010 and did so as class valedictorian, which was wonderful and great, because I had an amazing group of professors and classmates and everybody that was all really supportive, not only of myself, but we were all able to support each other in going out and growing in the profession. And I started working as an associate, just getting my hands dirty and essentially working with people hands-on and really experiencing what it was outside with patients, and really having wonderful results on the most part. But I always had this entrepreneurial kind of spirit within me that I wanted to go out and have my own practice. I ended up purchasing a practice. Funny enough, it was actually about 2 weeks after my wedding, so it was not the best timing, but it was quite the fun little struggle to go through in hindsight. And ended up owning my first chiropractic practice for a little over 5 years. And about 4 years in, I noticed that I was having issues with my own health. And I really felt that there was this negative energy in terms of, I've always had this idea that I wanted to go out and help deliver health to the public, to people in general that were suffering. Yet I wasn't taking care of my own health. I ended up at about 28 years old. I weighed 250 pounds. I had high blood pressure, high blood sugar, borderline diabetes. I had zero level of activity. At the end of a day working with patients, I was spent sweating throughout. Like it just, I never really had the stamina and the real true health to go out and actually provide true care and health to my clients. And so I was soon enough introduced to the idea of functional medicine. And what functional medicine is very much rooted in the ideals and the principles of chiropractic care to begin with. Chiropractic, we know we're looking for the root cause. We're looking for that underlying reason for why the symptoms are happening. The symptoms are a sign or some sort of signpost telling us that something is wrong in a certain place. And the philosophy of functional medicine is exactly that, just kind of focused more on the biochemistry. However, we're always looking at the root cause of those conditions, behavioral issues, structural, physical damage, whether there's some sort of physical or biomechanical thing that's going on. We know that. And so functional medicine was that direct route for me, simply to continue in the same philosophy, but just shift my focus into more of a biochemical realm. I ended up starting to work for a really close friend and mentor of mine who introduced me to functional medicine, Dr. Sachin Patel, who brought me into the fold. And I started learning and I started growing clinically. So I was actually doing 50-50 between chiropractic and functional medicine for quite some time. And then I was able to step away. And like I said, that entrepreneurial fire just kind of came out again. And it was time for me to step out and create my own practice, which is now called Health Upgraded. So that's my entire journey in a nutshell, but obviously focused on how I was able to shift my focus, even though it was my own struggles that kind of led me to that. And that's how I got to where I am now.
It's an amazing journey, and oftentimes where we struggle in our own lives, and the opportunity to face those struggles and then to look for solutions within ourselves, end up being the solution for other people as well. And that's something you've done. You went really deep into the functional and nutritional medicine and became an incredible practitioner, able to serve patients and community in a broader scope and have a really more significant impact. And the exciting part about that, it led to you not only developing that expertise, but then being able to collate that in a really profound and powerful way. So what was the journey from now you're in practice, you've got your own practice, you're making these incredible impacts, and you're looking to have that entrepreneurial aspect. So how did it start to unfold from chiropractor, practitioner, functional medicine doctor to expanded profile as an entrepreneur and therefore writer and speaker?
It's a great question. I believe a lot of it really started from the desire to get that information out to people. I started writing a blog. That was the simplest answer. I purchased the domain name drhabib.ca, expecting to just be seeing clients in Canada, and started writing a basic blog on WordPress. Didn't have anything special, just started writing articles on topics that were of interest to me, topics that were of interest to functional medicine, and just trying to get more information out to people that needed it. There's so many people out there suffering, in my opinion, from chronic health conditions, challenges that they shouldn't be dealing with. These are environmental concerns. Like myself, for example, when I was really unhealthy, I didn't realize that the answers were out there. And I was simply waiting for the right person's voice to come along and say, hey, there's a better way. Here's some great information on how to do that. And so the blog just started off as me saying important information, teaching people about health, and showing how I had my own journey of losing 75 pounds, getting rid of the health challenges that I was dealing with, the blood pressure normalizing, the blood sugar normalizing, my energy just skyrocketing, my business growing in that time as well. I just started sharing about how my productivity, how my impact was increased simply by being healthy. And the blog didn't really take off, for example, but it was always there. And it was something that I did consistently for a little over a year. And then I started to kind of wean from that and focus more on the clinical side of things, and always desiring to kind of get the information out in a different way. I didn't see the blog really taking off. I didn't notice that it was the right way for me to continue on, but I left it up, and it comes to be very important down the road. Then
I just want to break in there because that's really interesting. A lot of people, a lot of chiropractors think, you've got this expertise, you've got this ability. They want to share it, and they don't necessarily know how. And it's sometimes just as simple as whether it's a blog whether it's a podcast, but just getting the information out there. The first step isn't always about making that massive landmark. And, as you said, a year of writing without, necessarily getting the feedback that says you're on the right direction. It's just sometimes about taking it a day at a time, a blog at a time, a podcast at a time, sharing your message at one event at a time, but being servant-minded in getting your message out there, knowing that you're going to make an impact. And it's not always overnight. So I really appreciate you sharing that, because a lot of chiropractors and practitioners think that if it doesn't happen quickly, well, maybe it's not going to happen at all. But that's not the case, is it?
Not at all. In fact, there's a great analogy that one of my mentors actually had mentioned to me, and it really goes to show kind of what's happened in my life. He essentially gives this analogy of, are you the flower or are you the bee? The flower is stagnant in one location generally, but contains the information that the bee requires to go out and be able to pollinate. Okay. So the bee is actually going and looking for that information. And for a long time, people that are starting off in their profession are the bee. You're going out, you're trying to get that information from as many places as possible. And you're trying to help this client, and you're trying to get that client, and you're trying to bring this patient into your office, or you're trying different methods of bringing people in. But at some point, you shift from being the bee to becoming the flower, where other people start coming to you for information. And it takes time to get there. They start coming to you and saying, hey, didn't you write a blog post on this topic? Or didn't you have a social media post on this topic? Didn't you talk about this? And then all of a sudden you start to become the authority in that space. And so one of the blog posts that I wrote was a very simple article on the best, I believe I wrote 17 or 20 ways to activate your vagus nerve. And I left it up. I said, here, I'm not taking it down. I'm not getting rid of this information. If somebody needs it, it's great. Let's let it be out there. But I had my signpost planted. I remember the year that it kind of happened. So this was in 2018. In January, I had this plan that I was going to write a book. I had this desire to get this information out. A couple of my colleagues had written basic self-published Amazon books, which have done really, really great for them in terms of being that credibility tool. And people, when they Google you, they say, oh, this person has written a book. There's a lot of clout to go with that, and a lot of credibility that comes from it. So I said, okay, I'm going to spend some time and I'm going to write a book at some point during this year. And just let it out in the universe. It was one of my New Year's resolutions, one would say. And in March of that year, I got an email, a random email from somebody I'd never met in my life, who said, hi, I just read your article on the 17 ways to activate your vagus nerve, and I would love to talk to you about writing a book on this topic. I love your writing style. We've seen that this topic is becoming more and more important and more accessible, and more people are interested in it. And we would love to talk to you about writing this book. Would you be interested? I immediately said, scam, this is not a thing, this isn't happening. But I went and I did a little bit of research, because on the signature of the email was the name of the publisher, which was Ulysses Press. And I went and did some research, and I found out, okay, this person does work at Ulysses Press. Ulysses Press has published all of these different books. They're all health related generally. They're very focused on a specific niche market. I said, maybe there's something to this. So I responded to the email. 2 months later, we've signed a contract, and I have 6 months to get a book to them, a 40,000 page Word document to them with all of the information. What's crazy is the vagus nerve has always been important to me. As a chiropractor, I always had this understanding of the neurological systems, the parasympathetic, sympathetic, the autonomic nervous system. I had written a blog post on it. I just was trying to get simple information out to people. And it really ended up becoming the thing that I'm now known for.
That's amazing.
It really just, like, it was the universe screaming at me, you have to get this information out. And so I started doing a ton of research. I literally would wake up 4 or 5 mornings a week easily at 4:30 in the morning. I had my daughter upstairs in her bedroom, my wife up in the bedroom, and I was in my own space, and I literally just went, and I didn't bring, like, there's no cell phone, no emails, nothing to worry about at that time. I sat down and I started researching, and I read hundreds, if not thousands of articles on vagus nerve, heart rate variability, the gut-brain connection, the microbiome, you name it. I was just soaking in information. And I started to come up with a very, very simple outline of what the book was going to look like. What was I going to do? I'm a very structured, very process-oriented individual. So I was very, very quick to put together a very simple, free mind map on some online tool. I don't even remember what the name of it was, but I remember exactly what it looks like. And I just started doing, okay, what would section 1 look like? What would section 2 look like? What would section 3 look like? What's the theory? What's the importance of this? And what's the practical output? And I ended up structuring the book in that specific way. And then I had chapter 1 information, chapter 2 information. And I started to move it around and pick and choose. And it was just it was a beautiful kind of coming together of an idea. The coolest thing to think about is that everything that you see around you, everything that is around you, has been created twice. First in somebody's imagination, and then second in reality, right? And if we come up with an idea, that idea is this prompt for something that could occur. And what then needs to happen is that action, is that step. And if we take a step, we can turn an idea into a real tangible thing. And that's what this process was. It was an idea that was sparked literally by somebody else or by me years ago writing this blog post. It was literally 3 years after the blog post was written that I got the email. And it became this structured piece of information. And I said, okay, I have 6 months to write this. How much time do I need? And I ended up actually strictly researching, barely writing anything for about 3.5 months. And then I had 2.5 months to actually write the book. And I would consistently do the 4:30 a.m. to 5 a.m. wake up, come downstairs, and I'd have 2 hours of time just allotted to writing, just writing as much as I could. I would constantly be going back, referring to my notes. I had a stack of papers and stack of articles and just was going through it. I have this massive folder on my Dropbox of just articles. And I just structured this whole piece out. And it became this passion project that I just needed to get done. It was just the universe screaming at me. You had the idea of wanting to write a book. Now here's the opportunity. Go do it. And in October, October 2018, I submitted the book, and we launched in April 2019. And it became, the craziest feeling in the world was actually picking up the book for the first time and seeing like a tangible piece of knowledge with your name on it. It was just surreal to me that it happened, because I was never a reader. I swear to you, prior to understanding what functional medicine was, prior to coming into the self-development and self-growth kind of space that I've taken into a little bit, I could, on two hands, I could tell you the number of books I'd read in my entire life. Fiction, nonfiction, doesn't matter. I'd never read books before. And now I've written one. Like, to me, that was just a surreal moment. And so that was, for me, a really, really cool thing. And then once the book came out, I can't even explain how much it really helped to propel my business, propel my message, propel the information to people. The idea, the driving force behind me is that I can't fix everybody, but if I can fix the people who can fix other things, they're going to help more people, and they're going to help more people, and they're going to help more people. And it's just this trickle-down effect. And so for me, it's this idea that if I can light my light and shine that light on other people, they're going to go out and do the same thing. And my goal in my entire life is to help end needless suffering. And where there is needless suffering, there's somebody who can help it. And so I want to help them. I want to take health out of their way so that they can go out and do whatever it is they need to do. That driving passion is what drove me to then go out and say, okay, this is the medium by which I'm going to do it. I've been on countless podcasts. I can't even tell you how many podcasts I've now been on because of this book. I've been on 3 or 4 summits at this point. The information just continues to go out. I'm in my 30s, by the way. The business is exploding. I've entered mentorship programs that continue to help and propel this. I'm actually in the process of writing a children's book as well in regards to the same topic, because the information needs to get to more people. And it's just a simple tool that can then go out. And once you create this mechanism, it just starts to go. And once you've decided that it's going to happen, it'll just happen.
That's incredible. I mean, you've just given a master class on success. I mean, I think it's beautiful what you've shared. And I love the beginning part of it. Starts with that intention. You set that intention. You said, I'm going to write a book. You've taken an action prior to that in writing content. The universe synchronistically has given you the opportunity. And here's the most important thing. The opportunity arises and you take action. You do your due diligence. You confirm that there's no reason for you to be suspicious, but then you just give your heart and soul to that process. And I love what you talk about, because a lot of chiropractors can write a book, but they still need to create that framework around the knowledge and expertise they have. And you went deep into the research. You woke up early to make certain that you could research, learn, develop. And I go through that process when I work with practitioners to mind map that journey, to get the genius out of the brain onto the page. There has to be some structure and some clarity, and you formulated that. And then again, you stuck with it through to the end to create a complete product, which is so important. A lot of people, it's easy to go, oh, this is hard, it's getting tough, I'm tired, I don't want to wake up early. But when you do, the end product, as you said, is not only, and I loved what you said, that surreal experience of, oh my gosh, I'm holding up this book for myself, and I wrote that, and this is me. And I loved your genuineness in terms of what that whole experience, because a lot of people might think that, well, they can't possibly write a book. But when you have that really beautiful process that you share there of, you know, I'm not a reader, I didn't see myself as a writer, but I got there in the end. And I love that feeling that you showed. So that was really, I felt the excitement about that. I've written it, so I love you sharing that. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You spoke about propelling the practice, which oftentimes that does. I mean, there are so many reasons. And again, you write a book because the book calls you to write it. You feel a message needs to be shared. You have a purpose, and the book becomes an extension of that. And the natural byproduct is the success that it can produce. So I'd love for you to share a little bit what you did post-book. So the book's now out, it's launched. What took place for you to get it to that bestseller status? And was there anything happening behind the scenes or leading up to the book launch? What type of effort and energy were you putting into? Because it's not just about write a book, make it a bestseller. There is thought, strategy, planning, effort, and energy. So what was taking place at that point in time?
I was lucky enough to be introduced to a couple of great resources in regards to how to launch a book. There's a couple of very simple books on Amazon on this specifically. If you've ever heard of Chandler Bolt, he writes about how to self-publish yourself on Amazon and to make it worth it, and to like have it as a very simple, repeatable process. And he's written about 17 books on Amazon for that specific thing. So I was introduced to Chandler, and this was, I'm talking 2 months prior to book launch. He did a class on a very short class, but he did a class on how to successfully launch a book. And I had an opportunity to actually speak with him, and I took it. Like, there was no question that I was going to jump up and ask him as many questions as I possibly could. And he talked about having a launch team, and he talked about doing an online social media launch, where we're living in a time where information gets out as quickly as you want it to, and it gets out to everybody and anybody in that kind of needs to hear it. And you could leverage a lot of support people around you. So as I went through this journey, I had family, I had friends that I was talking about, I'm writing a book, it's going out soon, support me in any way. And I would always say, I don't know how you can support me, but I'll get back to you, I'll let you know. And what I ended up doing, what was on Chandler's recommendation, was create a Facebook group and name it, in my case, Activate Your Vagus Nerve Book Launch Team, and start adding friends to that, or have some sort of online hub like a WhatsApp group or something along those lines, and list out a set of 3 things that everybody needs to do. Okay. And what he essentially said was have everybody buy the book on Amazon on the first day, as many copies as they're able to. Buy the book. Even if it's just one, buy the book. Once you receive it, once you get an opportunity to write a review, go in, they have to get you a 5-star review and write out a little blurb about the book. The more 5-star reviews, the more pre-orders, the more orders, the more reviews that you have on your book, the higher Amazon ranks you. And so the idea was 70% of all books are being sold on Amazon. Don't focus too much on the external stuff. Focus on the one tool, that 80-20 rule that we all know about. Focus on that. 20% of your effort will go into 80% of the output. And Amazon is that tool for most people. So what we ended up doing was I had a launch team of about 35 people. I listed out instructions. Once the book was ready for pre-order, I had as many people as possible pre-order, and then get the 5-star reviews, and then get the things listed out. In addition to that, I was really, really lucky to have support from the publisher in regards to getting on social media. And I did a 1-week social media launch. So rather than go out and fly to California and fly to New York and go and sit in a Barnes and Noble and write or read a chapter of your book, nobody does that anymore. So I messaged as many of my functional medicine friends as I possibly could, as many of the people in my network as I possibly could that had some sort of reach on their social media. And I ended up doing, during that week, about 15 to 20 different Facebook Lives, Instagram Lives, YouTube Lives, you name it, all of the social media launch that you possibly can. And I would give away the top 3 exercises to do, but there's 27 in the book.
Amazing.
And there's a lot more information in the book. And you give away those top 3 and people are like, oh, I got to get this information. And so all of a sudden it started pouring in, to the point where I haven't checked it recently. I believe we're well over 170 5-star or 170 reviews, like written reviews, most of which are just spectacular. It's still got a 4.7 rating on Amazon. It just continues to expand and grow. And so when you have those specific tools kind of done and you have it structured and laid out, it's going to succeed. And these are proven ways to get books out to as many people as possible, get this information in as many hands as possible. In addition to that, a big piece of the puzzle is sending this information to people in your network, getting copies of the book. So I ended up buying 300 copies of my book, kept it in my shelving over here. And every time somebody in my network gave me their address, I would mail it out to them, and I would go out and do that. And all of a sudden they're recommending it to their patients, to their friends. It's getting on podcasts. That information, it cost me 10, 15 bucks per book to get it out. But what am I getting back from that? I'm getting patients, I'm getting support, I'm getting credibility, I'm getting onto all of these things. I ended up building a massive 1 year, like first year of my business growth off the back of this book. And the second year is continuing to look even better since the book was released. It just really propelled. And I can't say it enough. Nothing holds the clout that a book holds.
Yeah, that's incredible, amazing. And before we go on to the impact that it's had and the reach you've been able to have with it, you've also got the book translated to Spanish and French. So you've got the Spanish and French editions. There's an audiobook, an e-text version of the book. So how did you go about creating all of these different media representations of this book? Because writing the book is one thing, and now expanding that out and giving it different platforms to operate from. There's a level of genius behind that as well. So share the insights from that.
I'll say that a lot of that didn't come from me. That was having the publisher. So this is where the decision to go self-publish versus with the publisher comes into play. That said, this is the gig economy. You can get it translated into whatever language you want. I was lucky enough to not have to put in the legwork on that, to not have to put up the bucks to get it done. but I was able to benefit from having a team that supported the growth of this book. My publisher is very, very supportive. They're very helpful. Yes, I've not taken a cut of the income of the book that's as high as you would get from a self-published book, but for me, the income of the book isn't my primary income. It's not the driver of my income. It's the driver of my business, and my business then provides me the income. And that's what books do. Books are not there for you to make an income off of. I assure you, a self-published book more than likely is not going to bring you home $150,000 a year. It's just not doable. But the little bit that you can get from it will create credibility and create a level of client that wants to then work with you. And when you get these clients that are ready to start working with you, and you start being very niche and very focused on who you're working with, it creates a whole ripple effect. And I've been lucky enough to benefit from a very, very strong focus on helping, like you said early on, the entrepreneurs, the high functioning, high income earning professionals, and high performing athletes as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Often when I work with my practitioners, I often say niche down, profit up. It allows you to have that specialization, that unique position in the mind of your audience. And again, that they want what you have to live because they've read your book. They have clarity that you're an expert in your field. The authority that comes with that one allows you to not only leverage that to speaking engagements, summits and opportunities, but to specialize with the type of client or patient that you want, so that you can have that focused direction. And I think you've encapsulated all of that so beautifully in a very elegant package as well, because again, you have your practice has that unique direction about it, that you're working with high level individuals with a very focused approach. And I think only having a niche allows you to do that. And I think what I also want to emphasize was what you've done now is, as you said, it propels your practice. It's allowed your practice to grow, for you to be more successful, to be seen in multiple areas. And it's opened up opportunities that otherwise wouldn't have been there. So talk a little bit about, as I said, you've been on multiple podcasts. The Vegas Nerve presentation on the summit was recently. I watched it. It was amazing. So talk about those opportunities and how they organically unfolded as a result of being an author.
One of the coolest things that happened during this time was people taking notice of this information. So every event that I attended, and I've attended, I try to make a point of between 2 and 4 events that I go to every year in the functional medicine realm. Whether it's IFM-based events or practice growth events or whatever it is. But there's always people that are willing to learn, that are wanting to grow, that are wanting to get information from everybody who's around. And some of the speakers that I've spoken to, that I go out to after their talk, or I go and speak to afterwards, I've created a relationship with these people. I've started to have conversations. I'll message and text with them. And when my book was ready to be launched, I went to each one of them and I said, hey, I would love your support in getting this information out to as many people as possible. They were aware that at this point in the functional medicine realm, nobody had written a book on the vagus nerve other than like Stephen Porges and the polyvagal theory. Some of the stuff that was really high level, not very graspable information. This was a practical guide for that. And they took that and they said, this is great. I need to get this to my audience. And they started having me on their podcast. They started featuring my book as part of their offerings. I send them a copy. They would post it on their social media and say, hey, check this out. This is a wonderful book from my colleague, da, da, da. Or I would do their Instagram Live or Facebook Live, or I would write a blog post for their audience. And all of a sudden, it just started growing. And it just became an organic growth thing. And then the people that were listening to a podcast that have a podcast said, hey, I want to talk to him. So they go to my website, message me, hey, I'd love to have you on my podcast. That's how Marcus actually messaged me as well, right? So it was a matter of, I've heard you here. I believe that I can get, I would like to talk to you. I would like to get some information from you. And it just propelled from there. And for me, there was always this, the summit. The first summit for me was actually the Anxiety Summit with Trudy Scott, who's actually in Australia as well. And Trudy's wonderful. She reached out to me because she had heard me on a podcast and she said, hey, you talk a little bit about anxiety in your book. I want to talk about vagus nerve connection and how it links to the mind, or the gut brain connection, and the anxiety piece behind it. I would love to feature you on the anxiety summit. For me, being featured on a summit was kind of like this, you're on a pedestal type of situation. And when she reached out, it was the coolest thing, because it was within 6 months of the book being released that I'm now being asked to be on a summit. And it's continued to grow. I've gotten to 4 summits now. It's the level of people that start to listen to these things, that are interested in grabbing this information and growing and learning. It's just spectacular what you can do. So for me, it's been an amazing journey, but getting out to these podcasts and summits was a matter of a little bit of legwork early on. I barely do any more. It's absolutely amazing how many people I've really shifted from being the bee to becoming the flower, where now people are coming to me for the information.
That's beautifully put, and it's well deserved, because one, it's a great book. Two, you're doing incredible presentations. You're adding so much value. And what I really appreciate about what you're saying there is, you come from this place of service, of contribution. You give so much freely in terms of the content, the value, the writing, and then you give books and you do talks. And for the practitioner that realizes that the byproduct of giving is the ability to receive in the right time, because oftentimes we think, sometimes we want to receive before we give. And I don't know about you, but my children, sometimes I tell them quite repeatedly, you've got to water the plant before it bears fruit. And you've done that, and you've reaped the rewards of that. And I think that's such an important lesson for all of us, is it's not immediate, but when you just keep giving, you send somebody a book, you volunteer your time. And again, you volunteered to be on this because, I know that you want to get your message out there. And that's what this is all about. The fact that you're so legacy minded, the fact that you're so service oriented, the natural expression of that is your passion gets delivered out into the world because of your willingness to do that. So that's a beautiful message. And I just wanted to acknowledge the work that you're doing and that the value that you're adding to the world. It's so important. And I do want to bring this to conclusion, because I know that we talked about this before we got on there. I had a feeling that you'd love to talk about this. But I do want you to just share one last message with the audience about what it means when you have the ability to have the impact that you know is within you, because every chiropractor wants to serve. I believe our profession is really strong with that. What does it mean when you know that your influence is expanding beyond a limited scope into an international wider scope? And how has that made you feel, particularly with the feedback you've got from your book and from the people's lives you've changed?
Regardless of, I guess, the coolest thing that I've ever experienced, and I'll talk about this as a chiropractor, nothing is better than when a patient walks out feeling significantly better than when they walked into your office. If they've crawled in because they've herniated L4, L5, or if they've crawled in because they've just had this massive spasm in their neck, or something has really messed them up, and they walk out of your office, for me, I still get chills. I still get goosebumps talking about having that opportunity where somebody experiences a very positive shift in a very short period of time working with you, and that you were able to deliver that information, or deliver that tool, or deliver that experience to them. And when somebody walks out feeling better than when they came in, I've never experienced anything better than that. I wanted to start doing that on a deeper level, and that's where the book really came into play. I did not understand. I had no idea the level and the scope to which I was going to be able to get this information to help people. If you go through, and I do this just to help my ego once in a while. I need to make sure that I know that I'm doing this, but I'll go and read through my Amazon comments. If you do good work, you help people, they will comment. They will acknowledge it. They will point out, this is great information. There was one specific comment that comes back to me, that somebody who was dealing with significant depression, high levels of anxiety, she's been dealing with this for years and years and years, and she just basically started doing 2 or 3 of my exercises consistently that I recommend. These are basic, like you don't even have to think about them types of exercises. And I got this message and she said, after 3 weeks of doing these exercises, my depression is gone. I don't feel anxiety. I've never experienced this level of positivity and growth in my life until I did these exercises. And it really just shocked me. I just felt this positive thing. And I checked to see where she was from, and it was somewhere in Europe. And it was this like light bulb moment that I was never going to be able to help somebody in Europe as a chiropractor, hands-on, one-on-one care, which I acknowledge is so important to have. But somebody out there needed my information, needed the information that was stuck in here, and I needed to get it out. And now because of that, she's not experiencing that significant trauma or whatever challenge that she's experiencing. Just changing one life for the positive for me was worth all of the effort that I put in.
It's beautiful. And you never know how far reaching one decision, one act can be, and the ability to write a book and to get that to a status can have profound, far-reaching impact and effect, as you have demonstrated. Have you got any closing statements? Because this is like a absolute masterclass and blueprint of success. And I want to draw every little bit as I can, because you're such a valuable contributor. So anything else to close off before we finish off this interview?
I know that when you're watching this, and I've been on the other side of this, trust me, I've listened to as many self-development and self-growth and business development books as you can imagine now. I've listened to them on Audible now. And when you're on the other side of this, it sounds exorbitant. It sounds ridiculous. It sounds ludicrous that this is possible. I assure you, I am this, you are the exact same person that I am. And there's absolutely an opportunity. If you put your mind to something, our parents used to tell us this, if you put your mind to something, you're going to be able to do whatever it is that you want to do. That's dead serious. If you put in the effort, if you put in the desire, if you put in the work to get something done and you decide that you're going to do it, there's no way to measure just how much you're actually going to be able to impact somebody's life. And there's no way to actually impact as many lives as by going out and getting this information out to as many people as possible. It's very, very doable. Just create a life that allows you to do it.
That's beautiful. Dr. Habib, you are a very kind, generous man. I appreciate your legacy mindedness, your service to not just your patients, but the community, and in fact, humanity by the service you've done. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for everything you have done. I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thanks so much.